It's Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. Remember folks, Brayburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Start your morning with a Brayburn coffee, whether you prefer a classic cappuccino or an iced oat milk latte. Brayburn is something for everyone, available at Apple Green locations nationwide. Ollie Watkins has scored his 13th Premier League goal of the season to double Aston Villa's lead. They're now 2-0 up on Newcastle at Villa Park. 73 minutes on the watch. In the Championship, it is Sheffield United 2, Cardiff City 1. A lot of women's sport this weekend as well. We're going to keep you up to date on the women's Premier Division games in the SSE Electricity League throughout the afternoon. The Ladies National Football League Division 1 final is between Kerry and Galway. Throws in at 5 at Croke Park. We'll also keep you right up to speed on the Division 2 final, sponsored by Lidl. Armagh against Laois at 3 o'clock throw in. Tomorrow we'll see the very Ireland Camogie finals take place at HQ. The Division 2A final involving Kerry and Meath throws in at noon. Then two counties with All Ireland aspirations, Cork and Galway, meet in the Division 1A decider at 10 to 2. On the line to look ahead, the former All Ireland winner with Cork and Dublin Camogie player Sarah O'Donovan. Sarah, how's the form?
Hey John, how are you? Greetings from grey Cork today, unfortunately.
Well, look, it is the second capital. Sometimes you've got to get bad weather as well down there.
Absolutely, but we're very much looking forward to tomorrow. The top three gigs between the likes of Cork, Galway, Kilkenny always have a feel of Dublin Kerry about them. Yeah. And that's the excitement that I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Division 2A final is between Kerry and Meath. What can we expect out of that one?
Yeah, so two very, very strong teams, right? Kerry have been to Croke Park twice, lost to Dublin in 2018 and then won against Limerick in 2019. So they have experience of Croke Park. Meath, very new team, had a couple of retirements. Jane Dolan retired, but played in the league this year, very strong in the league, both teams. Kerry had the upper hand, beating Meath 112-12. So I would say tomorrow, 12 o'clock, very tight game. Two teams who know each other very, very well, but Kerry have the upper hand.
Cork and Galway meeting again in the regular league. Galway won by a point down in the park. Will that match have any bearing?
Yeah, I think psychologically for Cork haven't won this title in 10 years. Obviously, Galway are looking to retain the title. I think it was an important day for Cork to knock Galway out that day. Now, obviously, look, they had qualified already, and it was actually Tip were hoping to qualify. Galway got there by beating Cork. I think from Cork's point of view, the last number of years, Galway always seem to have had the upper hand. So I think going to the game tomorrow in Croke Park, really, really important that Cork get a good start and win the game, ultimately, because if you're not winning, you're failing.
Does that seep into the players' brains when you were playing Camogie at the top level? If you kept on losing to the same team, which Cork seemed to be doing to Galway, they lost the All-Ireland series recently as well, does it become a mental issue?
I think, yes, there is a certain drain there. And interestingly, the Cork Intermediates played Galway in the intermediate final last year. Humdinger of a game in Croke Park, really, really enjoyed it. Galway came out on top. Cathal Murray was speaking during the week about three of the players making the step up from intermediate to senior this year, being given a chance and taking it. So psychologically, that group of players has an edge over Cork as well. So Cork need at some stage to stop the rot and get a win over this team. And, you know, no better game than the league final. This team are playing each other in the first round of championship in June. So again, stop the rot now here in April. That's what Cork have to do tomorrow.
Spoken to Eamon McGee there before the break about Gaelic football and teams trying to peak at certain times. You've just had a busy league, which Mayo won in Gaelic football. Now they've got a break until they come back for the round robin because they got knocked out by Roscommon. What's the kind of the graph or the rhythm of a Camogie player throughout the year? Probably have less resources. They've got a league final to look forward to. Will the peak, say, of an All-Ireland final in the autumn, or well, now it'll be in July, be different to the peak tomorrow?
Yeah, I think judging by the games that I watched, I was in Parnell Park to see Kilkenny play Dublin, and I thought Kilkenny were very off colour that day. Tipperary got a scalp against Galway the first day out. Clare beat Kilkenny their first day out. The teams are coming in, I suppose, at different levels in terms of their training, and you know that July cut-off point for teams last year does affect the intercounty teams because obviously they're longer breaks and management teams are finding it harder obviously to get players back together. Interestingly, I noted that Meath, who are obviously playing at 12 o'clock tomorrow, didn't have a training ground to train in, or certainly an appropriate training ground to train in last week. And when you're facing into a game in Croke Park, the least you could do is, have a decent pitch to train on in the lead up to those games. And I suppose psychologically for me, that's something that would impact them, because you're making these big commitments and you're not being given the proper facilities to train.
So we've seen renewed calls for a merger this week, ladies football, Camogie and the GA. I think that's going to happen at some stage. But what will it mean for female Gaelic sports in the country when it actually does happen tangibly?
That's a big question to answer. I suppose I've always played with teams and clubs who've put women front and centre when they're organising the sharing of their facilities. My own club, home club Ballygarvan, always ensured that we had full access to the main pitches at suitable times during the week. I found in Dublin over the last number of years, in an effort, obviously because of the tight confines and the number of limitations in terms of the pitches, Camogie teams were being offered slots to train at 9 and 10 at night. Now, do I want to do a full day's work and then go out training at 9 o'clock at night? No, I don't. So I think it's important when this merger happens that everyone goes to the table together and says what's appropriate and how is it going to build communication within the clubs. And in terms of athlete development, having considered all of the aspects of a player's daily life and how they build their routine into the day, equality is key.
Absolutely. What have you learned from coaching Camogie in recent years?
Appetite is different with different groups. You'll have some players who absolutely die for it, and then some players who see it as a social element. I notice, having coached a number of male teams over the last number of years as well, that it's not as social for them as it is for female Camogie players. And I suppose the intensity that you can get immediately in male side of the game, you don't necessarily get with Camogie teams, certainly at a club level. At an inter-county level, that's different again, and you can get up to the pitch of it. But I suppose the appetite can be different from male teams to female teams, and that's something that has to be managed by a management team. And I suppose in the force of it and the importance of stressing how important it is to train the way you intend to play, that delivers performances.
How can Camogie take advantage of this new environment where obviously the success of the women's soccer team, going to World Cup, Leona Maguire, Katie Taylor, etc., is now being illuminated across all discussion points, whether it's social media, traditional media like we're involved in here right now, and obviously we're involved in both. How can more young girls get involved in playing Camogie if they're interested, or is there a way of just getting a recruitment drive going?
I think actually the clubs are doing an incredibly good job with the mini leagues, all the way through in the different counties. There is a real impetus put on players coming together at 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 and having this community on a Saturday and a Sunday morning. And I've been down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh a number of weekends with my nephew, Archie, and there's 150 kids on the field for an hour and a half. There's a big parade around it. There's a lot of colour, loads of different teams. And then the next group comes in. It's brilliant at that age, from say 5 to 12. It's that period from 12 to 19 where we really need to look at encouraging players to stay in the game, because there's obviously different distractions. And I think that's where the GA needs to look at attracting players and keeping players. Now, Galway, over in the West, we'll say potentially pools of players not there. But if you look at the Galway women's team are playing this evening in the 1A final football. They're playing tomorrow in the Camogie 1A final. They're doing something right over there, and maybe theirs is the imprint, because they're managing to have dual teams going at the same time with pools of players. And I talked about an intermediate team earlier from Galway. They have masses of players, masses of interest. So what are they doing over there that we could possibly replicate in other counties?
You touched upon a Dublin Kerry kind of thing in the top of the Camogie echelon of inter-county. So 2014 was the last time there was a Division 1 champion that wasn't Galway, Cork or Kilkenny. Are there any counties challenging the dominance of the top three?
I think, interestingly, this year Tipperary have a very balanced side. They were very unlucky not to qualify for the league final. And in 2020, during the COVID year, they actually qualified for the league final but didn't get to play it, if memory serves me right. They have a cohort of players there, the likes of Casey Hennessy, the likes of Roisin Howard, really, really strong players a group that have stuck together for a period of 5-6 years. They're the challengers. They're getting used to playing the big teams and getting a scalp. Got a scalp against Galway, do really well against Cork when they come up against them. Same with Clare. Clare got a scalp against Kilkenny in this year's league in the first round. I know I said Kilkenny were off colour, but you have to know that you can beat them. And, for Clare, psychologically, they got one up against Kilkenny. That was a big result for them this year. In Division 1B, Waterford, who were relegated by Dublin 2 years ago, and I was on the management panel that year with Dublin, and I was never so relieved at the final whistle when we managed to survive. But that Waterford team has taken 2 years to come back up to, I suppose, the heights of 1A. But last year, the All-Ireland semi-final against Cork, they were brilliant. They really, really pushed them. So another team stuck together, really well organised. And it's just about keeping a group of 20, 25 players together for a period of 2-3 years, just to try and build it to get close. And
Kilkenny, as you say, they had a bit of a dip in the league. Would you expect them to be back around the very top as All-Ireland champions come the crucial time?
Yeah, I'm not worried per se. I suppose it's just it depends on whether their appetite is there. They've been incredibly successful over the last number of years after a period where they couldn't win All Ireland finals. I love watching them hurl. The way they go about breaking teams down, and they're off the shoulder running, and their ferocity. We're very lucky to have the likes of Cork, Kilkenny and Galway in the game, because it is niche. Camogie is niche. It's a hard game to play. It's a hard game to learn the skills, but when it's played at full flight like it will be at Croke Park tomorrow, it's breathtaking.
Eamon was touching upon the maybe uniformity of coaches in Gaelic football. Is it a challenge getting good Camogie coaches?
No, I don't think that it is a challenge. I think the commitment is something that people outside of the game should be more cognizant of. You're committing every weekend to showing up for a group of players, and you're basically writing off 40 weeks of your year, and while coaches may have the appetite, it's the commitment for that relentless on the pitch touch point 3 or 4 nights a week that is something that would drive players or coaches away from the game. You're asking for a massive commitment, and you're asking people to take time away from their families, and we're very lucky to have coaches who consistently commit over 40 weeks of every year. Cathal Murray with Galway, his commitment over the last, I think he's there with them 6 years now. I could be wrong, but he seems like he's around forever. And knowing what I know now, having been involved with a number of teams over the last number of years, it's a massive commitment, and much harder to be a manager than a player, I've decided.
You must have to have a degree of pure vocational love for the thing.
Yeah, I think so. I love hurling. I'd watch it every day. And the Skeena Scull finals will be on in Páirc Uí Chaoimh this year, and I'm just moved to Cork, and I can't wait to go down to the park and see them during the summer. Like that's what I love about it. It's just I'd watch any hurling game, but I think everyone who's involved in the sport doesn't necessarily see the bright lights or the 80,000 people in Croke Park. They just love to see the game being played well. And the 17s and 19s games that are on at the minute in the hurling side of things are going under the radar. And I'm a little disappointed that it's all being shoveled into one kind of midweek slot. I think we're really missing a trick in terms of promoting the game by not making those games available during the week. There should be a dedicated channel that I could switch on a Monday or Tuesday night and watch hurling. The demand is there,
I will just get to the Camogie final tomorrow. How are Cork going ahead of this round robin in Munster? Are they well set now?
Yeah, look, they're going in as slight favourites. I think that's not necessarily where it is based on the form between the two teams over the last number of years. But from Cork's point of view, they're in very good shape. And look, a new midfield pairing with Saoirse McCarthy and Laura Hayes. Nice to see Amy O'Connor in really good form at the minute. Circa McCartan, really, really positive at the minute. Hannah Looney won't start tomorrow. She was in Austin last week with the All-Stars. Orla Cronin is fit. She won't start either tomorrow. But, that depth of their bench is something that we probably haven't had in previous years. Aisling Thompson's out with a cruciate ligament injury, and big loss for Cork, because obviously Aisling is a game changer, unquestionably. And in the last number of years, every time she's been kind of brought into games, she has changed games. So Galway will probably be a little relieved that she's not on the field tomorrow, because she is a formidable player for them. In terms of Galway themselves, Sean Healy as captain, what a leader to have at the back. Sarah O'Donovan appeared the day in Cork for the Cork game. The current or former, well, she's been away for a bit, but I didn't know if Sarah was going to come back to Galway this year, and is obviously a formidable fullback for Galway, but certainly to have her in the mix tomorrow would be a big thing for Galway, to have Roisin Black, Ailish O'Reilly. Like, what a stalwart for Galway, popping up with goals again this year at crucial times. She is just relentless. Carrie Dolan, really, really good season again. So lots of big names on both sides tomorrow, and I suppose it just depends who's at their peak, as you said earlier, who has managed to find their peak at this point in the year, because the game is there to be won, and it is a big title. And if you are telling me that Cork aren't looking forward to that game tomorrow and don't want to win it, that wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't make sense.
I'm looking at Dennis Walsh's article in the Irish Times here today. Why is it so unusual for a woman to manage a Camogie team? 10 of the top 12 teams in this year's leagues are managed by men. Does Camogie have enough pathways for women managers to get into the game?
It does. It does. But what is the Camogie offering a women's Camogie manager to come into the game? So if I'm looking to manage a team, the championship fixtures for this year's competition were released less than a month ago. So I need to plan my year with my team around a championship that I had no idea about in January, February. I genuinely think it's the organisational aspects of the game that are letting Camogie managers step away when they might necessarily show more interest. If I was looking at taking on a team, taking on Dublin, taking on Cork, and I had the fixtures for the following year in my diary from September, October, and I was able to plan my year, for me, for my players, that would open up, I think, conversations between prospective managers and intercounty teams. But until that organisation is there, I would have no interest in taking on a team, not knowing where I'll be in 6-7 weeks' time.
How are you going tomorrow at Cork and Galway? How do you see it going? I
think Cork are going to win this one tomorrow. I think 10 years is a long time to be away from those steps, and I think it would be incredibly exciting to see Emma O'Connor as captain lift the trophy tomorrow in Croke Park.
Sarah O'Donovan, former All-Ireland winner with Cork and Dublin Camogie player. Thanks so much. Good talking to you as always, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, John. Bye.